share my screen, and the first thing I'm going to do is have you guys see our website. And so if you have not visited our website yet, I encourage you to do so. So that's studentloansrx.com. And if there's some good stuff on here, talk a little bit about various different student loan repayment strategies. You don't need to listen to this or watch this webinar because you're on it tonight. And then different planning packages that we make available for those that are looking to work with a professional. I gotta let somebody in here. Okay. And then if you decide that you'd like to schedule, we do offer a free 30-minute consult. If you have something you'd like to visit with us personally, you can click on the free consult button, which is throughout the website. But the other thing I wanted to share with you is our resources page. If you're attending this webinar, we'll make sure that you're subscribed to our e-newsletter. If you'd like us to if you're still in school or residency program, you'd like us to visit you or do a virtual presentation, more than happy to do something like that. Just email us, let us know. But we have been fortunate to be interviewed on a number of dental podcasts, and scheduled to do another 4 or 5 here within the next 90 days. So you'll see more additions to our podcast. But if you'd like to hear more information about us, you can always visit the resource page and click on one of any of these podcasts. A number of them are very popular, I'm told. They have very large audiences in the dental field. And so we'd be happy to have you listen to one of those as well. So with that, I'm going to hop back to our presentation and we'll get started. Thank you again for being on time. We really, really appreciate it. So again, my name is Mark Johnson. I'm the founder of Student Loans RX and a wealth advisor at RBF. RBF Wealth Advisors, we're a fiduciary and a registered investment advisor. We're based in St. Louis. We have 10 wealth advisor professionals. We're an independent registered investment advisor as well as independent insurance agent. And so if you're looking to partner up with someone to help you navigate through your financial life, we'd certainly appreciate the opportunity to visit with you. Again, we do offer a free 30-minute consult. So just to give you a little context on how we got into the student loan planning arena, 10 years ago, I got invited to do basically it was going to be an investment financial planning presentation to a group of dental residents here in St. Louis. We have about 80 dental residents at St. Louis University. Most of them are ortho, but we also have pediatric, perio, and endo. And so I went in and did the presentation. I talked about, the importance of budgeting, get some disability and life insurance once you transition out of residency, make sure you start investing early in your career. So I would call that kind of a financial planning 101 seminar. And after that presentation, that year's residents, about 50% of them that were graduating wanted to visit with me one-on-one. There's a little coffee shop around the corner. So I scheduled some one-on-one visits, and one after one, they were telling me about how much student loan debt they had. Now, just to back up a second, financial advisors get zero education on student loan repayment planning. I've been in the business 30 years. I'm licensed as a investment advisor. I've got my broker dealer Series 7 license. I've been licensed in insurance for many, many years, and not one question on any one of my exams, not any continuing education has ever made any reference to student loan repayment planning. Okay. So just know that 99 out of 100 financial advisors probably know little to nothing about this topic. So when I was hearing that these residents were graduating with 400, 500, 750,000 of make sure, yep, thank you. Make sure you guys are on mute. Don't be watching baseball games in the background. This is good stuff here you're going to learn tonight. Anyway, so when I was hearing that they were graduating with between $400,000 and $750,000 in student loan debt, I was just blown away. I didn't even know you could get that much in student loans. So being a curious guy, I asked some questions like, how do you plan on paying that off? What repayment plans are available? And does the school provide any resources to help you figure this out? And they said, well, we pretty much have to figure this out on our own. I said, well, if you're graduating with 400 to 750,000 in student loan debt, that's a pretty significant financial planning issue. I'll bet that there's a company or two out there that can come in and kind of give you some ideas. I don't personally know anything about student loans, so let me see if I can find a resource to bring in kind of as a value added to the conversation. I poked around St. Louis, I couldn't find anyone. And so long story short, that was the genesis of Student Loans RX. And so for the last number of years, almost will be 10 years this fall, I gave that presentation, I think, in September, so it'll be 10 years in September. We've been helping primarily dental professionals, but we also do some medical, pharmacists, a couple veterinarians. I got an ophthalmologist, but emerging healthcare professionals figure out how to pay down their student loan debt in the context of an overall financial plan. And we're going to talk more about that throughout the evening during our presentation, but essentially, student loan repayment planning is not a one-time event. You're going to need to think about the other aspects of your financial life. And so one of the things I'm going to go to the full screen here now, is that Blake, are you monitoring the chat?
Sure, there's no questions.
Okay, I see two comments, I guess.
Hart got it figured out.
Okay, all right, sounds good, thanks. So what this slide illustrates is, our approach really to wealth or to financial health is a 360-degree approach. We're trying to deliver that continuity and continuum of care from the time that you graduate dental school all the way through retirement. That's what we do for our other customers outside of the dental space. We are a full service wealth advisor, and most recently in the last number of years, we've added student loan repayment planning to the list of services that we provide. So many of our clients engage with us coming right out of school or residency, and we help them establish that foundation. So we help them create a foundation plan. Many of our clients are on track to being owners, and so once they let us know that, then there's a whole number of other things that we can help them with as they're positioning themselves to be owners. And then once they become an owner, then there's a whole list of services that we can provide them, from business overhead expense, corporate cash management, putting in their retirement plan, and then hopefully many years from now, for most of you on tonight's webinar, that would be the sale of your practice in retirement. But we're in the financial health business, and we're in a position to help you across a range of services that you're going to need on your financial journey. We know that COVID forbearance is ending on August 31st, and interest will start accruing again on September 1st for your federal student loans. And so for many of our clients that we work with, the average, well, let me ask, this is my first audience participation opportunity. So what do you think? We had a number of people RSVP for this evening. What do you think the average student loan debt of everybody that RSVP'd for tonight's webinar? What do you think the average student loan debt is? Anybody want to throw it in the chat or unmute yourself? Take a guess. Nobody wants to take a guess? There's a couple of...
We got 500 from Art. Nicole Phillips says 300,000. iPhone says 400,000. Jim Dupree says 300.
Okay, so you guys are in the ballpark. So the average for the RSVPs we received tonight is around 375,000, and that represented $22 million of student loan debt in terms of RSVPing. We had a bunch of RSVPs tonight. We don't probably only 25% are on the webinar tonight, so I guess they either won the Mega Millions here last week, or something more important came up tonight. But in any event, we had $22 million of student loan debt represented in RSVPs. But if you had 350,000 of student loan debt as of March 13, 2020, when President Trump turned off interest rates and put federal loans in forbearance, all the way through August 31st. The Biden administration extended that forbearance a number of times, but that's over $90,000 in interest savings during COVID. So one of the things that we want to talk about tonight is kind of an update on, the Biden forgiveness plan, and we're going to get to the SAVE plan here in just a minute. But if you got disgusted with the Supreme Court's ruling that you didn't get the $10,000 of forgiveness, I understand that. I wish you would have got it as well. But for many of you, if you had any significant amount of student loan debt throughout COVID, you received many, many times over that in interest forgiveness. So other federal borrowers, VA mortgages, small business administration loans, those folks did not get their interest forgiven during COVID forbearance. So those with student loan balances were very select group of people that received that, and so I'm happy you did. But just keep that in mind. So when we think about student loan repayment strategy, there's a number of things that kind of impact that. And sometimes I think people feel, well, I'm just looking for the lowest payment. Now that might be okay, but that's not really a strategy. That's just a point in time. And so, whether you're in residency or you're heading to residency, or you want to be a practice owner one day, maybe you've got a boatload of student loan debt, maybe public service loan forgiveness is a good path for you. Your personal and family situation is going to come into the mix. Are you getting married, buying a house, need to upgrade your transportation, starting a family? Most recently, in the last 12 to 18 months, interest rates have become the primary driver in a lot of cases on what people are going to do with respect to their student loans. When 2 years ago, when interest rates were as low as 3%, when you could refinance at 3%, even though your student loans in the federal program were at 0, I advised a lot of my clients to refinance their student loans. Had no idea when the COVID forbearance was going to end, but I suspected it would end at some point. And because of COVID, the Federal Reserve lowered interest rates almost to 0 on Fed funds rate, and then a lot of interest rates followed. So a lot of refinancing. I had clients that were able to refinance their student loan debt between 2.5% and 3.5% during that period of time. Now student loans are getting turned back on. Interest rates on federal student loans are around 6 to 6.5%. So locking in that rate over a 10 or 15-year period at 2.5 to 3.5% really paid off for them. Okay, so again, there's a number of factors to consider. It's not just about getting the lowest payment. Sometimes that's great, but that's not a strategy. That's just a point in time. So what we really want to do is, again, give you the idea tonight, or have you think about this, is that my student loans may be the centerpiece of my plan right now, because if you got $375,000 or more in student loan debt, that's probably the largest financial item on your balance sheet, but it's not the only consideration. You need to look at your living expenses. You need to look at what you can afford in protection, like disability, life insurance, and then hopefully you're going to be putting some money aside for investing. I had someone ask me earlier this week, should I put money towards my student loans, or should I fund my Roth IRA this year? And to me, that's kind of a no-brainer. You should fund your Roth IRA. In this particular case, they were going to be getting on this new SAVE plan. Okay, well, $6,500 towards paying down their student loan debt. What kind of a decision is that over the next 40 years? Well, I calculated money doubles every 10 years at 7%. Avoiding putting $6,500 into your Roth IRA this year over 40 years is $104,000. That's what that $6,500 should grow to at 7% over 40 years. Money doubles every 10 years at 7%. So you can do the math and double check me on that. But so I want people to do both. There's multiple things that you should be doing with your finances. You should be protecting yourself with the appropriate amount of disability and life insurance. You should be managing your finances wisely with a budget. And then you should be investing along the way, as well as paying down your student loan debt. And hopefully there's a little bit of money left over for fun. So let's jump right into the student loan portion of our presentation tonight. So as everybody's aware, the US Supreme Court ruled that the Biden forgiveness plan, the president, no Department of Education has the authority to forgive student loan debt. You have a contract with the Department of Education, you signed on the dotted line, and just like anybody else that takes out a loan, you're responsible for paying that back. Only Congress, and I learned this in, I think, 7th or 8th grade, Congress has the purse strings, right? Congress allocates money. They're the ones that make decisions. Congress passes laws on where to allocate money. And so that's where that happens. So if Congress passed a law to forgive student loan debt, that would have probably gone through the Supreme Court, no problem. Anyway, COVID forbearance ends on August 31st. And in response to, I think, the Supreme Court ruling, they were working behind the scenes on, well, if we don't get what we want through the Supreme Court or through the courts, what can we do to improve the lot of all these borrowers? We've got this student loan crisis, $1.7 trillion in federal student loan debt. It's just a tragedy that it's come to that. And so the Biden administration's response to that is to simplify the income-driven repayment plans that were out there. We'll talk about that in a minute. And so their initial response is the new SAVE plan, Saving on a Valuable Education. And then there's some other things. Actually, Blake's going to talk about the one-time adjustment for IDR plans. So in general, I like what's come up. I think it's good for borrowers. We'll see what it does. It does nothing to, in my opinion, to stem the problems in terms of the longevity of student loan, of the student loan system. It provides zero incentive for colleges to keep their tuition in check. If anything, it emboldens them to continue to raise rates. That's my opinion. But there's no incentive in this plan for colleges to keep, to not just continue to build and raise tuition and everything like that. So we'll see where we are. I think there's still going to need to be a lot more work done on this issue going forward. So let's talk a little bit about the SAVE plan, Saving on a Valuable Education. First of all, it replaces one of the 3 income-driven repayment plans that are currently out there. It replaces the revised pay-as-you-earn plan. Next year, it's also going to replace the pay-as-you-earn plan. So essentially, if you're a federal borrower and you want to get on an income-driven repayment plan, by this time next year, you're really only going to have one option, and that's the SAVE plan, okay? Now, the SAVE plan does provide a very nice interest subsidy, and we'll get to that in a minute. But I want to back up and explain on the revised pay-as-you-earn plan. Actually, we're going to go through that on a couple of slides, so I don't want to jump ahead. As you might recall, on an income-driven repayment plan, as a graduate level borrower, so you took out graduate plus loans to get you through dental school and perhaps residency, when you begin making those payments, which are going to start in October for many people, there's a formula, and it's essentially 10% of your discretionary income. They do give you some credit for if you're married, if you have kids, but essentially you're looking at about 10% of your discretionary income. It's 5% on undergraduate loans. So you might have some kind of a blend payment, whether or not you have undergraduate loans in the mix. Once a payment's based on your income, once that income payment, or once that payment is established, let's just say, as an example, your payment is $500, but your interest accrual, because of the size of your loans, is $2,000. So you have $2,000 of interest, and your payment is $1,000. Okay, so there's $1,000 of interest left over on the SAVE plan. Uncle Sam forgives that entire $1,000. Now, that doesn't help your principal balance, but it eliminates your loans continuing to grow. And that's one of the nice things about the SAVE plan, and one thing that is an improvement over all the other plans that they've had out there, is that people that got on an income-driven repayment plan especially those with lower incomes, they just continue to see their student loans grow for 20 years. I have some new clients. One's a lawyer and one is a chiropractor. They're in their late 40s. They've been making student loan payments for over 20 years, and they have the same exact balance as the day they graduated 20 years ago. And that's an example on these old income-driven repayment plans. Unless you had a very, very high income, all you were essentially making is an interest-only payment. They've been making an interest-only payment essentially for 20 years. Now, this one-time adjustment that Blake's going to talk about in a few minutes, we're going to be able to get them on a plan, and they're going to basically have their loans forgiven. So one little gold nugget, if you have any friends in their 40s or early 50s perhaps that have been making payments on student loans for over 20 years, between now and the end of the year, there's a one-time adjustment allowance that if you've been making payments on a plan for over 20 years, your balance gets forgiven, and it gets forgiven tax-free. I know that doesn't probably address anybody on the webinar tonight, but if you have any older siblings or cousins or coworkers that have been making payments for 20 plus years, maybe not even in the dental or medical industry, but somebody was an art teacher or whatever, they are going to be able to apply, or chiropractor, like I said, chiropractor, lawyer, they're going to be able to apply for this one-time adjustment. So the other thing that the SAVE plan does is it allows you, which you're able to do right now on the pay-as-you-earn plan, but that's going away next year, is it allows you, if it makes sense, to file your taxes separately, and you would be able to have your payment calculated just on your income as opposed to your household income. If you file your taxes jointly, then you're going to have your taxes, you're going to have your payment based on your household income, not just your income. The other thing that it does is it allows you, this was a nice feature that they added. So in the past, you had to go in and calculate your payment on an income-driven repayment plan gets recalculated every year based on your income. So you had to go in and manually have your income recalculated, either submit a pay stub or your most recent tax return. Now, once you sign up for the SAVE plan, that's going to automatically happen each year. They're just going to go in and pull down your tax return from the IRS. You have to opt in for that, but I think it's the default. You have to opt out when you sign in because it's automatically going to happen. The other nice thing is that interest no longer capitalizes when you change plans. So if you go from, and why is that? Well, because there shouldn't be any additional interest to capitalize, because after you make your payment, there's no more interest. So that's basically that. They've raised the minimum income to begin making a payment. So you don't need to remember these numbers, but essentially, if you make less than $32,800, you're as a single taxpayer, you're not going to even have a payment. You can still enroll in a plan. You can still have those payments counted, or those months counted towards any public service loan forgiveness or towards the IDR forgiveness at 20 or 25 years. But essentially, until you make $32,800. So if you're in residency and you're making $55,000, residency started in June. It ends next June. When you file your taxes this year, you're only going to have 6 months of income. You're not going to get to that $32,800. You should get on the SAVE plan, and then no interest accrues while you're in residency. I already mentioned this. In 2024, payments on undergraduate loans go to 5% of discretionary income. So if you have a blend between graduate level and undergrad loans, you might end up paying, some blended rate between 5 and 10% overall on your payment. So I know I covered a lot of ground right now. So we've got a bunch in the chat. Blake, are there any questions in there that I should address right now?
Me and Harker have been going back and forth, but he was asking that he's got loans with Nelnet, and the person he talked to said that they were unclear on whether the SAVE plan helps graduate loans or not. They were thinking that, I guess the Nelnet person Hark talked to said that the SAVE plan only gives a 50% interest subsidy for grad loans. And we know that's incorrect. It's
Yeah, that's not
100%
true.
subsidy.
Right. So here's one of the things, and I used to have a bullet point on here, but I'm getting nicer as I get older. You know, the loan servicers, they're really not equipped to help you guys much. I mean, they can answer some basic questions. What's my loan balance? What's my average interest rate? When's my payment due? Can you help me set up auto payment? You know, they can guide you through some of those very basic questions, but as far as asking them which plan I should get on and details of the plans, I mean, Blake and I will have to call sometimes 2 or 3 times, ask the same exact question before we're comfortable that we got a correct answer. And so, I mean, there's class action lawsuits against these loan servicers because of, you know, part of the problem with the student loan crisis is that the loan servicers, they just, maybe it's because there's millions of borrowers. I don't know, but they're generally speaking on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being an awesome customer experience. You know, I don't think the loan servicers get very high ratings. Every once in a while, you get somebody that knows what they're talking about, but just be careful taking advice from the loan servicers. You really want to make sure that you visit the studentaid.gov site, you glean through that as we have, to really understand what that site says on a particular question. And then you call your loan servicer and you have the student aid page up and highlight the area that you want to talk about so that you can give them a specific response to the question and make sure that they come back with an answer that jives with what you just read. So I'm going to stop right there for just a minute and see if anybody has any questions. I'm just staring at a blank screen here other than my presentation. So if you feel inclined that you'd like to unmute yourself, put your video on, ask a question, that's great. Otherwise, Blake is monitoring the chat feature and we can answer a couple of questions right here.
So if we're on the PAYE program, are we automatically going to get switched to the SAVE program next year, or would we have to like recertify and get back on SAVE?
That's a great question. I don't know 100% on that. Since there are not going to be any new enrollees in the pay plan as of next year, that's going away. I don't want to assume. I have not seen anything on that. Blake, have you seen anything on that? I know for sure that anybody on Repay is getting converted over to SAVE. Have you read anything, Blake?
From what I've read, so the Biden administration has blocked new enrollees into the PAYE, pay as you earn plan, but existing people on pay, from what I've read, can stay on pay as long as they need to stay. So I don't know your situation personally, but it would be interesting to see what's the trade-off to switching to SAVE for your.
Yeah. So the reason why I didn't want to switch to Repay is because I feel like if you switch to Repay or SAVE, your minimum payment is not capped. Like let's say you're making $1 million, it's going to be based on 10% of that, right? But if you're on the PAYE program, let's say you're also making $1 million, your minimum payment is capped at a 10-year repayment, right?
That's true, but I would push back and say, why would you just want to make a minimum payment? Because what ends up happening is if you're making the smallest payment, you might be a subscriber to the tax bomb strategy, which I'll maybe touch on later in the program, but I think that's a horrible, not your strategy. I don't know what you're trying to accomplish with if you're on public service loan forgiveness, having a low payment makes sense, but ultimately you're going to have to pay these things off, and stretching your payments out over 20 or 25 years for most people. First of all, if you're making $1 million, it's not going to get stretched out over 20 or 25 years. You're going to, even if you cap out at the 10-year standard repayment, obviously you're going to pay them off in 10 years or less, right? So anyway, we can go back and forth on that. Maybe we should schedule a 30-minute consult, but I should have said this up front. We really want, this is just a philosophy, and it's, I think, some basic math too, but we really want to help our clients pay these things off in, 10 to 12 years, is plenty of time, because otherwise you stretch your payments out over 20 or 25 years, you're doubling the cost essentially to go to dental school. And, that's probably not the best idea. And the interest rates on most of these federal student loans is about 6.25%. And, as an investment advisor, if I can get 6.25% return on my money with zero risk, and that's what you're doing by paying down your student loan debt, once your income is taking you out where you're not getting any interest subsidies, then it's kind of all about interest rates. And if I can get a 6.25% return on my money, no risk, no taxes, that's a pretty good return. So anyway, we can talk more about that later. Any other questions, Blake, or anybody else have any other questions?
Nothing in the chat. I would just finish that, Hark, with you can always switch off of the save or pay plan and move to the standard 10-year repayment strategy as well. So to Mark's point, when interest rates, when your payment on an IDR plan hits to the point where there's no interest benefit, or you're paying more than the 10-year standard, you can always switch to the 10-year standard.
Now, one thing I would say is on the pay plan, there's no interest subsidy. Very, very little interest subsidy on the pay plan. So you kind of have to crunch the numbers and say, okay, where I've used the pay plan before is for a married couple where they're both making a lot of money, and one's on public service loan forgiveness. So we're trying to isolate that person's income because they are going to get some forgiveness at 10 years. So that's one strategy where we've used that. But there's some other reasons why somebody might want to have a very, very low payment. But generally speaking, that ends up kind of biting you in the back on the back end. So anyway, anybody else have any other questions, or Hart, did you want to follow up on that?
No, I totally agree with you. I just had one last question. I'm thinking maybe we should sit down and talk, but let's say you were on the minimum payment, like let's say I was on PAYE for, that was the program I was on, but there's nothing stopping me from making extra payments on my loan, right? I guess the strategy that I'm going for is keeping my payment low right now while I'm opening up a couple offices. And, when I want to make more payments, I can always allocate more towards my principal, right? Is there anything wrong with that?
Yes, but I'm not sure why pay versus save, because your payment, the amount is going to be the same on, well, I guess you're probably married then, right?
Yes.
Okay, I got you. Okay, so I like that strategy for a period of time. I can see that where that would make sense. And yes, you can convert that. You can convert to another plan down the road once you've got your offices open and stuff. But you're always going to need capital. So I think that can be a slippery slope. So you just kind of have to be disciplined on when, because time flies. Like this attorney and chiropractor that I visited with, 20 years has gone by, boom, they still got the same student loan balance. And so so I would encourage you, let's schedule some time and figure out a plan on how to manage that. But with respect to making extra principal payments, you can do that. And on the pay plan, because there's not a significant, there can be a very, very little interest subsidy, and we can go through the specifics on that. It's nothing compared to the save plan. But you can send in extra payments on pay and pay down principal once, if there's any interest bucket there from prior to COVID, any payments that go in, interest gets paid off first. So once you get any interest that you've accumulated on those loans paid off, then any additional payments would go towards principal. So that's true. Okay. All right. Blake, why don't you explain this slide here?
Yeah, certainly. So we ran the numbers on, the RSVP list has on average 375,000. And so we did two different examples. The first being, a recent graduate, maybe a couple years ago or upcoming, usually makes about $150,000 post-graduation, post 12 months. And we think about, well, $375,000 of student loan debt, not $450,000, mistake there. But average interest rate of 6.25%. So to put some numbers behind what we're saying on this, on our examples is, you're looking at an annual interest growth of about 23,000. Divide that by 12, you're looking about right under 2,000 a month. And the default 10-year standard repayment strategy, right? So if you don't do anything with your student loans, you get on what's called the default repayment plan. It's a 10-year plan for $375,000 of student loans. That's about $4,200 a month. And I'm going to assume most people in this webinar are not willing to take a crack at $4,200 a month towards their loans. But on the SAVE plan, you'll see in that green outlined box, it's $977, right? So that's a massive difference. That $977 is based on the household income of $150,000. Now, in this example, we're looking at a single person, general dentist. That's what we've seen from an average income level. And so what we're showing at the bottom of this is that
That's for a first year dentist.
Correct. Correct.
Yep.
What we're seeing is a federal interest subsidy, the interest forgiveness. If you take that 1,953 minus 977, you get 976. And again, that's money wiped away by the government. So it's an effective interest savings. Well, your effective interest rate goes from 6.25% to 3.13% down in that blue, right? So you take 977 divided by the 977 times 12 divided by the loan balance, you're getting 3.3% interest, right? So on the SAVE plan, automatically you're saving almost, well, more than 3% on your loan right there. And then because you're in October, if you don't do anything, you'll be defaulted on the 10-year standard. The cash flow that's freed up per month in this example is $3,200, right? So, what we try to emphasize is, what can you do with that extra $3,200? I mean, Hark's opening up offices wherever his practices are. A general first-year dentist can max out a Roth IRA, can save into a brokerage account for that practice loan you're looking to buy in a couple of years. You can establish an emergency savings fund. So we look to, like we talked about earlier, we look to your student loan repayment strategy is in that context of that financial plan. And so once we free up money from your student loan payment, where does that free money go? And that's, again, building up the foundation of your financial plan. So Mark, go ahead to the next slide real quick. For those of you in this webinar currently that are married, we just ran another example, similar example, same student loan balance, same interest rate. So all the things in the red are the exact same. But this example is based on $250,000 of income. So say you've been out of school for a couple of years, you're married, you make $200,000 or so, maybe your wife's a school teacher or in customer service or whatever the case is, and your household income is $250,000. It's based on tax returns. So I assume most of you that are married filed jointly in 2022. So your SAVE payment, again, would only be $1,700 in that green outlined box. And so your interest subsidy, your forgiveness from the federal government on SAVE is very minimal, right? At $239, right? So it's that 1953 minus 1714. So, but you've lowered your effective interest on your loan. And really the key thing here is that you've again freed up $2,400, $2,500 of cash each month to do other things in your financial plan. That's really, really important. Again, Roth IRAs, traditional IRAs for backdoor conversions, emergency savings fund, saving towards a practice loan, saving towards your own kids' educations, right? So they don't have to hire us down the road. Those kind of things, right? So what this SAVE plan does is it's really, really good at lowering your monthly payment and freeing up cash flow. And that's where I think we come in to help you as a client determine where does that extra cash flow go. So that's the examples we provide. Any questions on the examples before I get into the one-time adjustment? No? Okay. One-time adjustment, it's called the IDR waiver. You might hear it as the one-time adjustment, but basically you'll receive credits towards IDR forgiveness or public service loan forgiveness. If you get on an IDR plan by the end of the year, the Biden administration is saying that, you know, we didn't have COVID, you probably would have been making student loan payments. So we want to count those months towards your forgiveness count. And again, like we saying on here, COVID forbearance is from March 2020 to 2023. So there could be, if you graduated in 2019, there could be a lot of forgiveness out there, especially if you're pursuing public service loan forgiveness. Mark, next slide, thank you. Just an example, how does the adjustment work? It's going to happen automatically. Your loans, the Department of Ed is going to go into your loan account and identify which loans are eligible for it. And you're going to get those months counted for it. So this example, someone graduates May 2021, the 6-month grace period does not count. So forbearance is from December of 21 to end of this month, 21 months, almost 2 years counting towards that 20 or 25-year forgiveness period. But more importantly, if you're pursuing PSLF, that is almost 2 years to the 10-year window for public service loan forgiveness. So that's really, really critical. If one of you guys on this call is pursuing public service loan forgiveness, please talk to us afterward. This IDR waiver one-time adjustment is so important for you guys on the PSLF track. If you're not on the PSLF track, the IDR waiver, it's a benefit for you guys. You see it in red. We don't really recommend you guys staying on these plans for 20 or 25 years. This is a nice little extra piece for you, but again, we do not recommend you guys be on these loans or these plans for 20 or 25 years. It's going to double the cost of education, and you're going to have a giant tax bomb later in life that you really don't need to have. So,
Hey, Blake, I'm going to use this as an opportunity just to put a little more emphasis on that area highlighted in red there. So I'm 55 years old, and so I want to share a little bit of perspective with you guys on taking the approach where you're going to pay this off over 20 or 25 years. First of all, you know, you're young, you're just starting your careers perhaps, and your futures are very, very bright. And that's why we work in the dental space and emerging healthcare, because we believe in what you do, and we're excited about your future also. However, life throws curveballs. Okay. And the strategy where some people feel I'm going to make a really, really low payment, and then I'm going to just drag this out as long as possible. I'm going to take those additional monies perhaps, and I'm going to invest them. Now, in a short period of time, I don't have necessarily a problem with that. But if you drag that out over 15, 20 years, I can mathematically demonstrate that you're going to generally double the cost of your dental education, as if 400,000 or 375,000 isn't enough. The other thing is that you're making some assumptions. The assumptions you're making is the investment that I'm going to make with these additional monies that I'm not putting towards student loan debt is going to grow at a faster rate. That's an assumption. It may or may not turn out to be true. So I'm an investment guy. I've been studying the market since I was a teenager. I'm 55 years old. Okay, there are long periods of time where the stock market doesn't go up. Now, you don't hear that from a lot of investment guys, I know, but from 1964 to 1981, 17 years, market was flat, 17 years. The Dow Jones, which was the benchmark at that time, was the same. It was 1,000 points at the beginning of 1964, and it was 1,000 points in 1981. Okay, you can go back to the tech bubble burst from 2000 to basically 2010. That's about a 10-year period of time. The market was about the same over that period of time. So you have to look at some things and not make these assumptions that everything's always going to be rosy. There could be a change in the economy. There's a 50-50 chance, I hate to say that, but there's a 50-50 chance of getting a divorce. And so how is it going to work out if you push your student loan payments out? You end up getting divorced. What happens when you get divorced? Well, you lose half of everything and more in some cases if you're the primary income earner. So it's always best to pay down debt with marital assets as opposed to paying down debt with whatever's left over after a divorce. Okay, and I guarantee you in divorce court, your ex-spouse is not going to be awarded half of your student loan debt. So it's really important that you don't just look at these simple spreadsheets that sometimes are out there on YouTube on these strategies to kick the can down the road forever, because I've never seen a strategy that says, because if any one of those things, the investments don't work out, you get divorced, there's some healthcare issue that comes in. And then the other thing is you have to be prepared to pay that tax bomb at the end. And I guarantee you 20 years from now, you're not going to want to write an extra check out for $100,000 or $200,000 in taxes. So just be careful about taking recommendations from people that talk about kicking this can down the road for a long, long period of time. Either they don't know history, they don't know the markets, or they're trying to sell you on something else that maybe isn't gonna work out for you. You
Mark,
should try
we got a question. Stanton, Stanton, I don't know how to pronounce your last name, but said if you have enough money to make any type of payment, what is the most economical plan in the long run? Save sounds nice, but are you saying that it will cause you to pay more over time than the standard 10-year plan?
So there's some variables there. I don't know what your income profile is going to look like over the next 10 or 15 years. We typically use income-driven repayment plans with our clients that, you know, are going to be successful in their careers. They're going to be making $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 or more. Maybe they're going to be an owner and make $1 million. Okay. So in that situation, an income-driven repayment plans are set up for people who cannot afford to make a regular payment. That's what it is. Just like leasing a car is set up for people that want to drive a car that they cannot otherwise afford. I mean, that's Mark Johnson's take on leasing cars. Okay. If you had the money to buy the car, you'd buy the car. You wouldn't get in on a lease. Okay. We use income-driven repayment plans for clients that are transitioning from school or residency into their careers. They have no assets generally when they leave school. So we want to help them build an emergency savings fund. If their income is starting out low, which it is, right? Your first year out or your second year out, you're only working 6 months that first year after graduation. So you only have 6 months of income on your tax return. So you're going to have a low student loan payment. And that, therefore, on the SAVE plan, you're probably, if you're graduating with $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 of student loan debt, Uncle Sam is going to pick up most of your interest. And so instead of you having an interest rate at 6.25%, if you jump on the standard plan right away, your interest is 6.25%, 6.5%. Okay. If you're on the SAVE plan and Uncle Sam picks up half of your interest or most of your interest, you might only have an effective interest rate of 3 or 4%. So which would you rather have? Your student loans accruing interest at 3% or 6.25%? Obviously, it's 3%. So the SAVE plan is a great plan to get on in those first couple 2 or 3 years out of school or residency. But if you're being successful in your career and you're making, you know, $250,000, $300,000 or more a year, you got to start figuring out a way to pay this thing off. And that's probably not on right now with interest rates. It might be on the standard. You can still make extra payments on the SAVE plan. We can talk about that if you schedule a 30-minute consult. But having Uncle Sam pick up some or all or most of your interest is a fantastic thing. And so that's where we use the SAVE plan. I hope that answered your question. Okay. Why don't you finish up with this? And we're kind of running towards the end of our hour here.
Yeah, certainly. So just to capstone the IDR waiver / one-time adjustment, all eligible loans are the direct loans or federally held.
No, I'm not mad. Just
iPhone.
So, don't be mad, but if you're going to be mad, turn off, mute your phone. Okay, go ahead.
Just you got to be on an IDR plan by the end of the year. Direct loans or federally held FFEL loans are eligible. Any months as a post-grad forbearance will count. In-school deferment does not count. Residency deferment will not count, and then the grace period will not count as well. Someone who's graduated in 2020, 2021, 2022, or even 2023, you did have a grace period kind of behind the hood. We found that out with Nelnet. So that 6 months post-graduation, those 6 months will not count because you technically were in a grace period underneath your forbearance. But just keep that in mind. And again, if you're pursuing public service loan forgiveness, you got to have a qualified form on file with your employer and submit it to your loan service provider. But this is so important for you guys that are pursuing that track. You've got to get an IDR plan by the end of the year. So.
Okay. So when we're visiting with clients who are looking to work with a professional, help them develop a plan, you know, we kind of see that folks fall into a couple of different categories in terms of what they want to accomplish with their strategy. Obviously, we are excited when someone says that they want to be a practice owner. We're small business owners. Small business is what built America. 50% of Americans are employed by small business owners. So we love small business owners. Positioning yourself to be an owner, I personally think that's the best student loan repayment strategy because owners get paid more than associates. That's just the way our economy works. So if you want to pay down your student loan debt quickly, become an owner, make more money. Obviously, there's some trade-offs there in terms of time and responsibilities, but if you can pull it off, being an owner is fantastic. We also visit with folks that say, I want to pay these things off as quickly as possible. One of my very first clients that we did a student loan plan, she graduated as an orthodontic resident. She's going to be making like $185,000, $190,000 out of the gate. This was 10 years ago. And she wanted to be an owner, but she just said, I've got $400,000 of student loan debt, and I just want to get these things paid off as soon as possible. She fell in love, got married. They lived on her husband's income. I think he was making maybe 80, 90,000 at the time. They lived on his income, had a 2-bedroom apartment, nice suburbs, went on vacation, saved money, put money in their 401k plans, but they took pretty much all of her income and knocked those things out in under 5 years. She's a owner now in North Carolina and is doing great. So, you know, that would not have been my initial recommendation. I'm more of become an owner first, but in her case, it worked out. So again, we're here to help you guys achieve whatever the goals are that you want. Obviously, I think it's about maybe 15-20% of graduates go on to public service loan forgiveness. I don't know how many of them end up completing that. Obviously, we're just coming up on 10 years of working with graduates. None of the folks we worked with in the first 3 years of doing student loan repayment planning, we're going on to public service loan forgiveness. So I've got, but I do have a couple of folks that are at about the 6-7 year mark. So they're excited about getting that taken care of here in the next 3 years. And then we have a group of folks that say, hey, Mark, I want to keep my payment low, get married, buying a house. You know, I want to, you know, we're going to take a trip to Europe. We've been in school, you know, since I was in kindergarten. I just got done with dental school, maybe even went to residency. I'm 30 years old. We're going to have a little fun for a couple of years, and that's fine. Obviously, it's your money. So we're here to help you in whatever strategy you're trying to accomplish. Our goal, our job is really just to make sure that the numbers make sense. So you just, and that you're protected and that you're making, you know, that at least you're informed when you make those financial decisions. It's super important to get disability insurance. You know, there's a whole, you know, you want to make sure you have to have malpractice insurance, right? Or you won't be allowed to practice. Although did you guys see the thing on the news here recently? Somebody was arrested. I think it was in Pennsylvania. She was putting herself out as an orthodontist, and she never even went to dental school. So maybe if you can, yeah. But anyway, you want to have malpractice insurance. Want to get yourself a small life insurance policy. Even if you're not married, you've got people that you love. You're going to have people in the future to love that are going to love you while you're young and healthy. You want to get some basic life insurance. You know, $40-50 a month. You can get $1 million policy if you're healthy. And that's just protection for those you love today and those you're going to love in the future. Because again, a certain percentage of young adults are diagnosed with debilitating diseases, and then they can't get life insurance. And I can give you some examples of that if you schedule a 30-minute consult with us. There's other things, investment planning, estate planning. et cetera. So just real quick, just want to share with you guys, obviously, we're not a nonprofit. We make a living helping folks achieve financial health. We have a variety of planning packages. You can visit our website. On the bottom of the homepage, it lays all this out, but essentially our foundation plan is 4.5 hours of planning, $749. You're going to have about 2 hours of homework. We've got about 2 to 4 hours of prep. So there's about 10 hours of work put into one of these plans. Same thing for our couples foundation plan, 6 hours of planning. Single grad plan, if you're only looking for help with student loans, it's $549 for 2 hours. If it's a couple, it's $749. And then if you're in residency, we have a resident foundation plan. We give you 2 hours of planning up front, 2.5 hours of planning on the way out of residency, and we invoice you in 3 equal installments. We invoice you in 3 installments over your residency. Each of our plans, again, we go through all these bullet points. We don't invoice you until you've been working for 60 days. If you're not getting paid in residency, you can visit with us. We've got options to defer your payment until you graduate from residency. And then we do have some referral discounts on our foundation plans up to $100. So we try to make it simple. We're not getting rich doing these planning packages. We're really here to establish a relationship, give you guys great advice on your overall financial plan. Student loans are going to be a big part of that starting out, but over time, if you're making good choices with your money, student loans will decline and other things will become more important, like investing and buying that practice, building that practice, hiring employees, putting in a retirement plan for your employees, et cetera. So I'm just going to skip, again, go to our visit our website. If you want to schedule a free consult, just click on the free consult button, put some information in there for us, and then we can get that scheduled. Want to encourage you, if you want to listen to us more in kind of a back and forth interview type scenario, you can listen to one of the podcasts that we've been on. There'll be about 6 more on there by the end of the year. And then, want to encourage you, visit the website, schedule a 30-minute consult. And Blake and I would be happy to visit with you and see if there's a connection here where we can help you develop that financial plan towards financial health. And so I want to thank everybody for being on tonight. We're going to stick around. If there's any other questions, we'll stick around until the last person falls off or unplugs. Blake, do you have any other thoughts you want to share tonight?
Nope. Put a consult. That's my final thought.
Okay, so again, we appreciate everybody being on. It's 8:31 Central Time, so I want to be respectful to your time. We try not to go over an hour, but if anybody else wants to stay on and ask questions, we'll do that. This has been recorded, so we will send you out a copy of the recording, a link to the recording so that you can listen to that. So again, on behalf of Mark Johnson and Blake Kleins from Student Loans RX and RBF Wealth Advisors, you guys have a great evening. And thanks for joining us on the webinar.